Okay, welcome to the University of Melbourne. It's good to see you all here. My name is Brian Davidson and I teach this subject called Governing Environments. I teach it with Joe, who you just heard a moment ago. It's good to see you've chosen the University of Melbourne. I think it's a good place to come. It's good to see that you've also chosen a good degree, in the sense that that's what the Bachelor of Environments is, a great degree. Now it's time to choose subjects. And I don't think you can go beyond the winner if you're actually picking them good, and this one's not bad. For no other reason than actually we need the money. So the more funds we get on seats, the more people we have. Now the question really is that you want to think about in choosing subjects is, where does it fit within my broader program of what I do? The interesting thing about an environments degree is it allows you to learn a big education. You get a few skills and you get a lot of thinking. And in this subject, this is one of the ones that does a lot of thinking. This subject is really about how you organise society. It's a wider subject than just the properties one that you heard about a moment ago, and it encompasses more than the natural environment which you heard about earlier. But there are many ways of learning this sort of stuff. You can actually learn things other ways than coming here. I'm not suggesting that you go away. The old way of learning things about society and the environment you live in used to be, in the old days, of taking a green tour. And what you would do is you'd get on a coach with a tutor or somebody and he'd float you around Europe. And you'd get to do all sorts of exciting things, socially, culturally, etc. All tours. You could still do one now. They're run by a company called Contiki. And they involve a pile of 20-something getting on a bus and driving through a pile of pubs around Europe. Every tour you go to ends up in this place, strangely enough, which is the city of Florence. And the Florentines are well known, and the reason they take you there is that it has a long history about the modern era. So when you sit down there and think about Florence, what normally the Contiki bus will do is take you, in some senses, to go and see a cathedral. Look at the Duomo there. It'll talk about, in some ways, that big dome, which construction-wise was the first dome built in its form in about 1,500 years. It will also probably end up taking you to this little bridge, the Ponte Vecchio, which is well known. As a matter of fact, it's one of the few bridges across the Arno River that the Germans didn't destroy because it was so lovely. And then what happens normally is they let you loose to go to the pubs and do the sorts of social things you need to do. The girls I took there went shopping. But that's their problem more than anything else. What I suggest you do, if you actually do go to the place, is actually go and visit this place. This place is the Church of the Holy Cross, 500 metres away from the centre of town. And this is where the Florentines buried their notable people. And if you actually go in there, you'll find the place stacked with tombs of people. And these three tombs, for instance, are tombs of very important people. The first one is the tomb of Michelangelo. Of course, a great artist. Something you do in the environments degree is get an understanding of art through the architecture, etc. And of course, the sculpture and the stuff he did is the famous statue of David. In an environments degree, you can also learn a fair bit about science. That second tomb is Galileo's, in the same church. And the fact of the matter is, Galileo, after a 200-year sort of study into the heavens, developed the telescope, which changed the way we thought about the world. The interesting question is, how is it that all that art and all that science suddenly started then and has been maintained? Why have we grown on that? And the reason is probably the little tomb that's hidden around the back. This one of a bloke called Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli has a terrible reputation. He wrote a very famous book called The Prince. The book is beloved by fascist dictators on how to control society. But what you actually found out of all of this was the fact that the reason why you get the great art and why you get the great science and why it persists in some way is the way you organise society. That's the trick to all of it. The growth of things like democracy and systems within it, and the way you organise the groups in society come from that period. And they've, of course, changed a lot. And that essentially is what governing is all about. It's about how you organise society. Now, we're not that interested, per se, in the depths of politics. We're more interested in the questions of politics, policy that arises. Now, what we really want you to do and understand in this subject is how to understand the regulation of society in a systematic manner. In other words, we want to give you some sort of basis upon which you can understand how those sorts of decisions that Joe was talking about are actually made. We want you to come to terms with the key issues facing regulators, and they are monumental. If you have time to open the paper, there's something different, it seems, to be going on. We want you to recognise that different models are used in different parts of the environment. And we're not only interested in the built environment, we're interested in the natural environment as well. We're interested in open environments about national parks, etc. We're interested in the question of why you get this. The material you learn here can be used at any level in society. Your most basic level that you probably understand in the politics of governance is at a family level. You know that there's a thing called government up there. But these sorts of things can be applied even to the problems of the Essendon Football Club, a noted failure in governance. Why do we have massive big towers suddenly being built in them? Do you really want that? They're the sorts of questions Joe asks. Now, the point about it is, how do we get to that situation? How do we change it? How do we go back? They're the sorts of issues. You need to understand that this is a wicked problem. Wicked problems defy a solution. Wicked problems mean that what you actually end up with is managing the problem more than anything else. So there are strengths and weaknesses in each one of the approaches you take. If you want a quick way of understanding this, this is what this subject's about. If you sit down there and think about the broad ideas of economic growth, etc., you call that the round peg. And you think about the environment, be it built or natural, etc., or open in some ways, as a square hole. The story of this world is really how do you put that round peg in the square hole? The argument is always put that the people who are in the square hole, for instance, are always saying, stop violating our rights. Don't affect this at all. The people, of course, who are in the round peg situation are saying, just ream the hole out a little wider and things will be a lot better. And of course, everybody looks to one little group to do that. Can government do that effectively? Do you want governments to do that effectively? We've just passed a law in this country that hands all your metadata on your telephones, etc., over to the government. Good idea? Bad idea. They're the sorts of things that you need to think about. Is government good for you or not? Now, quite frankly, if you want to learn this sort of material, in some ways, you need to first have some understanding of the environmental, political and economic systems that you face. We provide that in the first 4 weeks. Then we deal with the issues, and we try to quantify them and categorise them into a number of key issues that you can look at. And it's only then that we start to look at how these regulations apply. Now, the subject works very simply. 3 lectures a week. In the lectures, we raise the questions, and we also, in some sense, learn the principles. There's 1 hour of tutorial a week, and in those, we learn those to resolve those sorts of questions and apply them. The tutorials are the small group, the good learning, the place you can start to discuss this sort of stuff. I will say this at the moment in the opening point, we are a second semester subject. At the moment, we're scheduled on for a Monday and a Tuesday, and your tutorials are wherever you want them. In terms of assessment, there's 3 mid-semester tests done in class. There's also a 2-hour exam at the end. The final exam is, all forms of assessment are compulsory. The question really is that you start to learn how to handle the questions and whatnot from doing the mid-semester tests. So it's a sort of an interactive learning type process. I'll give you a word of warning here at uni, just one piece of advice, don't miss an assessment. You miss an assessment, you drop a grade. If you're like me at uni where you're just a bare pass student, that meant fail. So you want to be careful of that one, okay? Now, there is no real text to this subject. You can pick a lot of materials up online, including the text I suggest at the bottom. We have notes available as well. We do not record lectures at all. So that's one thing we don't do. Now, I've talked a lot about the past. Let me give you a picture of what this subject is also about the future. This is a famous cartoon drawn by Ron Krupp, where he asked people in the 1960s to envisage their future. The funny thing is, I think the world has picked the middle panel. Everybody's trying to avoid the top panel. Some would like the bottom panel. I think the bottom panel would be as boring as a night out in Brisbane, and that's my problem. Okay, it seems to me that in society you're constantly making these sorts of changes. Given that this was what people thought the world would be like in the 1960s, you can imagine how the technology in 50 years has really changed and those sorts of things. That's what this subject's about. We find that a lot of fun. We certainly hope you do. Thank you for your time.